more football talk, as we've had some time now to let it all kind of digest. Of course, now Rocco Spindler, who played in the College Football National Championship, coming to Lincoln, but Notre Dame and Ohio State, and then you saw the expanded playoff for the first time in all of its glory. You saw, of course, this same year, expanded SEC and expanded Big Ten. So a few things on just kind of thoughts on how that all went. What, for you, Nick, did this get right the most? Like, what absolutely worked with this playoff and all of its expansion?
I think what worked first and foremost, and this is what I expected to work, was the on-campus games. The campus site games were an absolute home run. To see people in South Bend tailgating 3-4 hours post-game, that was so cool. They weren't shutting down those lots. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be. I thought that was really cool, and some unique matchups too. Getting the battle of the state of Indiana when you had the Hoosiers being in South Bend. There's that I thought was an absolute home run, and it seemed like at some point we were going to get some close games. And thank God Texas Arizona State delivered. That thing was an absolute insane game. The way that went down. Unfortunately, Texas wins that game. But the issue that I see is the inconsistency with the schedule, where you have a week apart. Then you had, the Notre Dame Indiana game was on a Friday, then everything else was on a Saturday. And I understand the holidays, it's tough to navigate, and you don't want to go against the almighty NFL. But you have a week off, then you have a week and a couple of days off, and then it's a week and a half off. We know that the national championship game was one of the lowest viewed collective college football national championships that we've seen, I think, since 2012. Mm-hmm. I think there might have been some fatigue setting in, but I think the inconsistency with the schedule also played into that. And the fact that somehow they had to put a game on the same day as an inauguration. I know that only happens once every 4 years, but you also had college basketball, which that's a big Martin Luther King Day event, where from earlier in the day all the way to the end of the night, you usually have college basketball running almost 24 hours on that day. So you had a lot of reasons to possibly forget about the college football playoff game if you were just a casual viewer. So the schedule itself, I think, was interesting as far as trying to find that consistency. But yeah, again, I go back to, you asked the question of what do I think they did absolutely right. They did the campus sites right. I just wish that they could have 2 rounds of that. I wish the teams that got the bye could also host. I think it would behoove those programs to be able to host. I feel like there's got to be a way we can figure out how to do this.
Well, I think that helps out with, say, like a team like Ohio State. Mm-hmm. To the Rose Bowl and the Cotton Bowl, and like they were going everywhere, all over the country, and got the one at home. But I agree with that. The campus sites, that to me is the biggest win in all of this, is that you got to have those. I'd love for it to be the first 2 rounds, so that everyone who is a higher seed gets to host. Also, it helps out overall with the cost with your fans trying to. Most likely, you've played in a conference championship game at that point. Mm-hmm. I know Ohio State and Notre Dame didn't. I also think what this expansion got right is you absolutely got the right teams. I know there was the discussion at the end of the 12 on mostly around Alabama.
Right.
On where do they fit in. And guess what? If there's not an upset in the Big 12 championship, Alabama's probably in. Like that they were able to sneak somebody in because of the way that played out. Mm-hmm. But you're now talking about 11, 12, 13, 14, instead of talking about this team went undefeated in the ACC, and yes, their quarterback is hurt, but they're going to be left out of the top 4. You're not getting that. Like, it is impossible to get that type of situation with your power teams. Mm-hmm. So to me, and of course, Boise State getting in, it was like you were looking at the group of 5. That's absolutely the one that you were saying they're the one that's most deserving to get in there after Army fell off down the stretch. And of course, Navy then kind of rubbing some salt in the wound late. But you got the right teams. I think the biggest thing that this missed on is that it showed a glaring error in the schedule. It showed how tough it is when you're starting in August and you're going through and you get to Thanksgiving weekend, and then you do conference championships, and then you do a week off for Army Navy and the start of bowl week. It's like, well, at some point you're either going to have to move up in August, or eliminate conference championship games, or really they're going to have to get imaginative in the way they rework the schedule. I think that was just kind of an issue that was brought up or kind of shown the spotlight on with that, because it was frustrating that I'm fine with more football, but it taking until January 20th and the way everything got stretched out on top of transfer portal and everything else that in semester schedules, it was just really tough to see how that could all be navigated in a way that benefits everyone.
Yeah, and I can't believe I'm saying this, because I know you and I we're both college football heads here, but it was almost college football overload in a way, because we're creatures of habit. We're used to that second Monday in January having the standalone moment of the national championship game, and that's all that's going on that day. When this one finally hit, I don't know how many people realized it was on that Monday, because you had so many other things, both in the political world, but also in the sports world too. And we're also transitioning into NFL coaching searches as well, playoffs going on in the NFL as well. So it's almost like college football it almost outstayed its welcome, I think, with the public audience. And that's a tough thing for me to say. I don't know if that's exactly why you saw the dwindling of numbers in the national championship game. I think there probably could have been a lot of factors for that, but it did seem like it was too much. It did seem like there was, as you're trying to hype up a national championship game, some of the top headlines in all the college football outlets were which transfers go into this place and which coach is going here. So it almost seemed like that matchup was kind of getting tamped down and going further down the actual area of importance when it came to the sport itself. So how you remedy that, I don't know exactly the answer to it, but I do think that consistency matters when it comes to the schedule. I think being able to, if there's some way they can have that standalone night for the national championship game, that's huge too. I think you're right too, Kaleb, about the schedule itself. If you're going to have to start it earlier, dare I say, do you shed a game? We love college football. We do not want to eliminate any games, but it has to live, I think, within a certain time frame before people, not us, but casual viewers are like, yeah, you know what? I've moved on. I moved on from the college football game. I watched maybe a couple playoff games. I'm good. I don't need to see that part of it. Another quick thing, and this is where I'd love to get your thoughts on it, because I found myself, this is where I get a little nitpicky on it. I'm watching the games, and I have the utmost respect for people who call the games, the personalities, what they bring to the table. But there's something about a college football playoff game that I want to be able to associate the voice I'm hearing to a big time matchup. And when it is controlled by just one entity of ESPN, ABC, I think Joe Tessitore does a great job. But when I think of Joe Tessitore, I'm not thinking big game right here. Can we possibly?
I'm thinking of a putt golf obstacle course. I'm sorry.
of a holy moly or whatever. Yeah, exactly. And then his failed attempt at Monday Night Football.
Yes.
I would love to see some way, and I know this is the battle of the broadcast rights on this, and we're talking about billions of dollars here. If at least in the opening round we could have NBC get a crack at it with their A team, Fox get a crack at it with their A team. I would love to have Joel Klatt doing at least one college football playoff game. I would love to hear Noah Eagle doing one college football playoff game. I feel like the CBS, ABC, NBC should all have, and Fox should all have their opportunity at one college football playoff game. And if that's in the opening round, then ESPN, ABC takes over from then on. That's fine. I know it's nitpicky. It's how many people actually care about who they're listening to do the game. I do. I think it'd be cool for everybody to at least get one college football playoff game.
I agree. It's you got used to those voices on the big games, and then everything kind of got spread out in a way. Just get Nebraska into the playoff, and then we're listening to the Huskers Radio Network. That's
there we go.
You sync up on that. Last minute. So I'll just give you this, because I know we'll want to at some point, whether it's in the middle of spring, after spring, we get into the fall, and we know more of what the team looks like for this year. How far away is Nebraska football from being one of those 12? Is it 1 to 2? Is it 3 to 5? Is it 6+ on where this program is at being able to give Husker fans you're either hosting or you're going to a campus site for a college football playoff game?
And this is what the data tells us, right? You watched Ohio State, Nebraska play. Nebraska's right there. Nebraska has a chance to win that football game, and that's against the national champion. So are they that far away? But then your eyes tell you, yeah, but also look at how they performed in some other games too, against UCLA, against USC. But I still believe 3-5. And this is why, Caleb. We spent a good amount of time talking about how quickly you can dramatically transform your roster. And the fact that Nebraska has the resources to do that, and they have a head coach that understands that. I do think 3-5 is still tangible for Nebraska to put themselves into that position of at least being, whether it's a year that 4 Big Ten teams make sit, Nebraska's the fourth team. Maybe Nebraska's has the Indiana type season. Yeah, I think 3-5 is tangible. 1-2 to me seems a little overly optimistic, but I don't think that they're so far back that, yeah, you're 6+. So I think 3-5.
Yeah, I think 1-2 is more likely than 6+, but 3-5 is kind of that sweet spot in the way that Matt Rule has kind of built teams to take progress and got to a bowl game. Can you finish in the top 25?
Right.
And then in the next year, can you build up? Maybe it's a big jump. Maybe it's just your top 20 or your top 15, and you're in the conversation.
Yeah.
So I like the direction that things have gone, and you've seen Matt Rule go through his previous stops and kind of where those things are.